position, Dr. Mukul Sharma, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. After a long lockdown and quarantine by default, I think we are all under the same situation. Until situation becomes normal, I think we'll have to have lots of restrictions. We are definitely preparing for new normal. In fact, I was sharing based on whatever we have seen in the past, based on what is available before all of us, from the perspective of the record. Disaster have struck on a number of occasions. The global community has faced disaster after disaster. And so this kind of disaster is nothing new, in fact. It's nothing new. But the problem is that we don't want to revisit the history and carry forward from the knowledge that has been an offshoot of the wealth of experiences that have gone through. That's the reason why the state is doing what we shouldn't have been doing. We are talking about all our friends, all our citizens who are returning, and testing to see whether they are by chance carrying the virus, and taking measures to put them in quarantine. When I was a student in the medical college, I came across the word called quarantine. In a chapter when we have to study about dealing with infectious disease, communicable diseases, epidemic, endemic, pandemic. So what we learned in medical college was that when there is an infectious disease notified elsewhere in the world, then the nations are expected to restrict the entry of people and verify whether the people who are returning to their respective nations or entering as a citizen, as a visitor, have any history of having traveled to those countries which has these notified incidents of infectious disease, or have traveled through any nation where the epidemic has been notified. And they are subjected to screening, they are quarantined in the border, in the airports, in the seaports. But unfortunately now we are doing it here in our state. It's not a blame game, but something which should have been done by Government of India is being done by us. Now we have all those uncounted millions of migrant workers stranded across the country, returning to their respective states, and that is where in the interstate borders you see all measures put in place, which is beyond the coping capacity of every state, beyond the coping capacity of the nation as a whole. That's why all these reactions here. And we are putting masks, we are following stringent protocols because we don't trust each other who might be carrying the virus. We are tested while we enter because we can't actually be sure as to who must have contracted the virus. But the virus was not in this country. Come on, man, it was somewhere else. It has entered the country. The virus didn't fly itself. Our own people who have gone abroad have returned with the virus. or people who have entered the nation as a visitor, as a tourist, have brought the virus. Because the thing which we are doing here now, testing the visitors, testing the returnees, and quarantining, which was required to be done in the international border, in the airport, in the seaport, was not done. I don't know why. When the first positive case of COVID-19 was shared on the 30th of January, it's amazing. The whole world, not just something which we are seeing in our own country, but elsewhere, across the globe. I don't know. What must have been the reason? Is it because they were not guided by the people who are expert in their respective domain of epidemiology, expert in the domain of dealing with infectious disease and their containment? There has been institutional mechanism already put in place. The world has fought against many infectious diseases. Smallpox have been eradicated. I remember when I was a kid, we used to see a vehicle, smallpox eradication program. And as we grew up, we heard that smallpox have been successfully eradicated. And we studied about epidemiology in the medical college. We talked about, various eradication program. Every country became very ambitious after the smallpox eradication program, that we can actually eradicate all the diseases, all the communicable diseases. That's why even our nation, instead of the National Malaria Control Program, we started having NMEP, National Malaria Eradication Program. We became more ambitious based on our experience as a global community. And that is exactly what we should be doing, based on those experiences. Something has gone wrong. The NCDC, which was supposed to be the premier institution to advise the government, both union and state governments, and the whole disease surveillance program, which is under this control of NCDC, with all the experts in the respective domains, they are not visible. That's why you have all the faulty protocols coming again and again, with number of correction. Thanks to you, Mr. Speaker, sir, you have saved the state. If you wouldn't have someone, or rather invited that consultative discussion, we would have been in a real mess. We decided to work together. We decided to share, our experiences. And today, I must share with all my friends here in this August South, I think we should not have any reason to now be panicky anymore. We should. Irrespective of all those little goof off here and there, okay, theek hai, but let us learn from that. Meghalaya will remain COVID-free. I feel I am confident. I must share this cautious optimism with all our friends in the August House and with all the people of this state. Yeah, cautious optimism. Cautious optimism because no space for complacency. Now, we have decided, even as a nation, to engage in this collective war. When we say collective war, when we want to fight war and whomever we, call upon to join in the war, they must be trained. They must be trained. We don't take anybody who can't fire even to the front line when there is a battle. So it's only expected and it's only necessary for all of us that if we are saying we must do it collectively, then we must actually enlighten everybody. Everybody must be trained to be able to cope with the challenges. The coping capacity of every citizen is important. Therefore, there has been a concern when we looked at, the kind of panic reaction to any information of positive, the tests turning into positive, and how it was necessary to undo that panic. Therefore, I would like to urge through you, Mr. Speaker, sir, it's very important to reach out to everybody. Though we are trying to reach out to the people, to realign our approach to deal with this situation, we need to do more. I had the chance to talk to some of the young boys who are in community quarantine in East Garo Hills. And I asked them, so which was your entry route? Most of them have entered through Bajengdoba. I'm talking about Garo Hills region. And in one of the community quarantine center, out of the 4, 3 said that they were not tested, except screening. Officers from the district authority were there with me. So obviously they were asked to take note of that and see that they are tested again, because they were not tested. Then similarly, in one of another 3rd community quarantine center, similar thing, that they were only subjected to screening, that thermal scanner to determine the temperature. And besides that, nothing. I asked, did they prick your hand and took out some blood? No. Or did they took out something from your nose? No. So neither rapid diagnostic test nor RT-PCR test. So this is the ground reality. Now I can understand that the coping capacity of our frontline workers. Therefore, I have even earlier suggested that every effort to bring back our stranded friends, stranded citizens, must be in a controlled manner. Somebody was talking to me yesterday, sir, when can we, return? Government is not telling us, nobody is responding in the phone. I had to tell them, look, almost 1,404 people from Bangalore are going to arrive. And therefore, it is not expected that all of them must arrive together and have so much of pressure on the frontline workers, because then, people, when they work under pressure, there will always be scope for human error. Now, RT-PCR test, okay, it is based on genome sequencing. So, it is supposed to be COVID-19 specific. But the human error factor, even based on all the studies done and the documentation available to the whole global scientific community, it is said that there will still be 3 to 5% false result. Why? It's because there are factors which is linked with human error. And this human error is also linked to how we do things. Therefore, how we do things are very important. We may do the same thing, but how we do is different. It is very crucial for us. Therefore, it is very important for us to communicate to our young friends who must be more restless. And it is definitely a matter of concern, because some people have started hiring buses, taking permission and coming on their own. I remember on, I think it was on Saturday or Sunday, 31 people who returned from Delhi by one bus. There was some communication gap. And what happens if some people just sneak in? But thank God, because they were behaving responsibly. They have informed the authorities and they followed all the necessary procedure, even though they were subjected to lots of waiting. Now, therefore, there will be challenges. But it is important for the government to actually have, I have suggested that please have dedicated people to talk to these people repeatedly. It is not happening. The number of 3 officers are available for everybody. How is it possible? I mean, you have to look at human limitations. How is it possible for these 3 officers to respond like a call center to everybody? Have I not suggested that, okay, district-specific officers. I know, okay, who are supposed to be in Mumbai from my district. And that is the mechanism which we have to adopt. Why is it not being done? Why it has to be, that Shillong, that center where it is from the CMO who is already overburdened. Hands are full. If my hands are full, am I expected to be able to hold another bottle? It's humanly not possible. Let us be realistic. And let us be scientific in our approach. So this is where, yesterday, again, 9 boys from East Giant Hills were stranded in one of the cement plants. They have known that, okay, state government has allowed movement of people from district to district. They were desperate to go home. And I am told they have gone and reported in one of the police stations in Clarion. And what has happened, what has disturbed me, because we were in the house. And after I returned, I got a message in my WhatsApp saying that these 9 boys have been taken. They were asked to pay 2,600 per head, and they were taken to ISBT Guwahati. They are youth from Garo Hills, probably from 2 districts, from North and East Garo Hills. Why have they been made to go by 2 sumos via Assam, and they were made to halt in night in ISBT Guwahati? These flip-flops will ultimately result in that kind of situation like your slip between the cup and the lid. Having come together, okay, we are expecting that we will be able to take opportunity of the fact that so far we have not had cases which is not beyond our coping capacity. We can deal with this. But these small things, in this fight against this virus, small things matter. There is one housing society in Ghaziabad. So a friend of mine stays there, and there are 11 towers. And there are dedicated 2 groceries there. And they have had their whole system to insulate the society, but still they managed to get some positive cases. They didn't know how it happened. Subsequently, it went up, and it happened that there were 10 cases. So one of the gentlemen who is a good friend of mine was talking to me and asking me, sir, how is it possible we have been taking all the precaution that everybody who comes are, sanitized with all the necessary protocols and everything. But still the inhabitants of the society, the residents of the society, will end up seeing positive cases. So I asked them, how do you get your groceries and other things? They said, no, groceries there, it's a self-help. We have to just pick up whatever we want, and we pay Google payment. Nothing. No notes. But still they got positive. So I asked them, how is it then no, entry mein sab security hai. There are securities unless you sanitize your hand, you put on your mask, and then only one person is allowed to enter. That is the stringent protocol even the society has met. Nobody will enter more than 1. Okay. So I asked them, do you carry your mobile? They said, yes. You know what happens when we are carrying the mobile? Even though we sanitize the hand, before entering the grocery, we'll put the phone in our pocket. Enter, then suddenly you will be tempted to talk to, probably you will be tempted to talk to family members. Are ye bhi hai? Should I take? Or the wife will ring up, reminding the husband, Are, I forgot to tell you, please pick up that also. Please pick up, okay, some dry fruit, some phone. So phone is not sanitized. Since the person concerned, whoever must have been carrying the virus, have already touched the phone and touching the products. If I am trying to buy 1 packet of almond, I might end up touching 3 packets. That is the usual human behavior. So small things matter here. Small things. It's a kind of situation, as I have said, the slip between the cup and the lip. Therefore, lots of conversation is required. Lots of discussion is required. Many questions come as to, okay, whether if this is how I do, is there any risk of me contracting the virus? All these kind of questions are there. So I think we must build on these experiences and the knowledge which is available under our command in dealing with infectious disease. And even if there is some wrong prescribed protocol, we should be able to analyze it. Like last time we were discussing in the consultative meeting that you invited us to attend about the issue of depending on the rapid diagnostic test for antibodies. Good. We are happy that there was a positive response, and we are not depending on that rapid diagnostic test for antibody now anymore. But the first batch who have returned from Chennai, they have been subjected to only this rapid test for antibodies, and they have been sent home. I have spoken to the senior officer saying that please recall them, or you have a reverse tracking and then do RT-PCR tests. Please do this. I was assured that they will be sending this order to all the concerned district authorities. I don't know whether it has been done or not. I think it will be appropriate for the House to know. This suggestion has been given. Please ensure that all those people who are entering the state, as what was done in 14th century and the subsequent centuries to deal with infectious disease, is nothing new. In the 14th century, an irony is that the place where the quarantine started, that is one of the nations who have had the maximum, I must say, number of deaths due to this COVID-19. Italy and Europe. It was Europe, around Venice, when that history of Black Death, when 1/3 of the population of Europe was a victim of plague. 1/3 of the population succumbed to that infectious disease. That was the time when they said, okay, all those people who are returning to Europe through that port around Venice, they must be subjected to isolation and see whether they develop the symptoms of the disease. And they were quarantined. No, they were not quarantined. They were kept in isolation for 30 days. It started with 30 days. During that period, 1343, 47, and 50. 47, 50 was the time when maximum death took place. That is the time when they realized that 30 days is not enough. Then it was notified that, okay, quarantino means 40. So from that quarantino, which refers to 40, comes the English word quarantine. And that is the word we came across in our medical college when we were studying about epidemiology, about epidemic, about pandemic, about infectious disease. All our medical friends from medical fraternity, the doctors have read that same thing. It's not only Dr. Mukul. But I don't know how it has skipped the attention of the big policymakers, the great leaders in the whole world, whether it is America, whether it is UK. We are paying the price of vacuum in leadership. Let me be blunt. We are really paying the price. Otherwise, what we are doing here today, we wouldn't have been doing it. We wouldn't have had to have even this to be worn. I'm sure after a few months, Meghalaya wouldn't have to wear this. We should be prepared for that. But here, again, we're making a mistake. Why is it necessary to restrict the time for shopping? Curfew. See, please don't misuse this Section 144. Every time this Section 144 is promulgated, it is always ex parte. You can't have ex parte all the time. Ex parte is only on urgency basis. Why is it necessary for the authorities to come up with new restrictions without even informing the citizens? That's illegal. That's illegal. You may do once or twice, but not every day. Please desist from this. This is not acceptable. It is very important for us to be very, very transparent. Now, instead of whole day opening the shop from 9 o'clock till 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, why is it necessary? Is it because of lack of understanding or illiteracy? That you reduce the time and force the people to rush to the shop. It's just contrary to what we should be doing. 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock. So everybody knows, 1 o'clock shop is going to close. Panic buying. Who is responsible for all this tamasa which we have seen? That whole so-called call for social distancing which have gone for a toss. It is because of our foolishness. Because of the foolishness of the authorities. This foolishness sometimes comes because of panic reaction. I want that we must strategize a very efficient, robust, implementable mechanism to avoid this kind of overcrowding into the shops. Let all the shops open. Specify the timing. Up to 5 o'clock? Why? Up to 1? Why? What is the scientific interpretation? It's just a kind of somebody's opinion, somebody's thinking. It is not based on realistic and scientific approach. Regulate the, I told my boys in the house, you are not going to do shopping every second day, every third day, no. Whatever you need for the whole week, you make a list and go. Why should everybody go every day? So regulate the exit of people for shopping. People are talking about odd even number. What is this odd even number? So, okay, Delhi people think that it might work, but it may not work for us. Why don't we have that every local authorities, we have a robust local authority, constitutionally empowered. Rambasnongs, the Nokmas, the Katham Nokmas, all those locality heads, locality authorities, and which have withstood the test of time in their efficiency in governing and carrying the people along. Let the community decide, okay, I have 300 families in my locality. We will give 3 different cards, green, orange, yellow, or whatever may be the card color. And orange wala will go only on such and such day, not every day. Now every day, if there is some tendency of people to go to market every day, that was there, but new normal has to be there. So work out some strategy, something which is implementable and based on scientific and realistic approach. And that can happen. It will reduce the overcrowding of the people. Now nobody knows who is going to the market. I don't know who is going. So I asked my boy, hey, when you go, if it is overcrowded, don't go. But then, how many people will have that cautious approach? Therefore, that whole thing can be redesigned. Let us do something like that. You know, one family can go to the shop maybe twice a week. Every third day, after every 3 days maybe. First day, second day, third day, then fourth day. So it continues. And it will be easier to regulate and it will have less footfall of people in the market. Now, what is the new normal going to be? Keeping in mind that, okay, now cement price is going up. Why should cement price go up? Okay, there must be short supply, the demand-supply gap. But at the same time, just because there is a short supply, it should not be taken advantage of by the cement industries. I wanted to share one very serious concern in this regard. Cement price can't be so high. These cement factories are engaging in fixing their price. They form a cartel, which is illegal. They're legally extorting the citizens, the consumers. I urge upon the government to address it and correct it. It is a cartel. there is quite a number of ruling on this. In fact, some of the cement factories have been penalized because of engaging in this price manipulation by forming a cartel. I think it's high time that we don't allow them to really take advantage of the innocence and simplicity of our people. Simplicity of us, because we are so simple. Then another thing, people have limited money. Where is the money going to come? We don't know what is going to happen. Of course, we are expecting that medicines will soon be available. We are expecting that vaccine will be soon available because the whole world, every nation have geared up. Every scientific community has geared up. That is one good thing. And irrespective of whatever differences as nations, every nation have come together, like we have come together. Therefore, good things are required to be anticipated. That's why I said cautious optimism. We move ahead with cautious optimism, not with pessimism. I see lots of loss of hope amongst our people, including our own colleagues. I saw Zenith having quite, concern, very loss of hope. So I think we should have that cautious optimism. It is because of what we see and what we perceive and what we understand. So we have to create certain situation where people can be reassured through our corrective measures, course correction, course correction, course correction. If we are consulting, if we are discussing, and if we are debating, and then we always have to go and be guided by one principle, that when we listen to others, we'll end up listening something which we don't know. But when I speak, I'm speaking what I know. But when I listen to others, then I'll end up knowing something which I haven't known. So I think that is how the conversation helps us. That is how the consultation helps us. And therefore, in a vibrant democracy, this is the platform which provides this space. And even outside the House, you have created that platform. And that platform has helped us. Now, another important thing is in the matter of the investment that the government has made so far to create various developmental programs, the infrastructures. Let there be no cost overrun due to time overrun. It will cripple the state's economy in the long run. We have seen a number of programs because of various challenges that as a state we face. I remember that bridge over Simsang at Williamnagar, after how many decades we could complete. But should I blame anybody for that delay? The circumstance was such that the bridge could not be completed. It was written with big headlines. I don't remember, 27 years, 29 years or something. Our honorable member from Rongrengri, Williamnagar, will know when we inaugurated. After how many years? Almost 3 decades. Why was it? We had so many roads which were tendered. In 2011, we entered into agreement with World Bank. Courtesy Finance Minister, our ex-president of India, Pranab Mukherjee, when he was the minister in charge of finance in union government. In 2011, when I was the chief minister, we signed an agreement with World Bank to take care of the rural connectivity, the roads, PMGSY road, because government of India, whatever effort they were putting into pumping resources as per the demand of the states, the money was not enough. But we tried to tell them, look, roads in the rural areas are linked to maternal mortality rate, infant mortality rate, the Human Development Index. Therefore, World Bank must chip in. World Bank must intervene and partner with government of India. Agreement was signed in the month of January in 2011. World Bank to fund PMGSY roads, the rural roads in 7 states, which included Meghalaya. Rest of the states were allowed to join afterwards, saying that, okay, those states who would like to also avail benefit out of these, you can join afterwards. But the first states, Meghalaya, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Punjab, UP, Jharkhand, 7 states. We laid the foundation. There is a need for us to take advantage of the foundation that has been laid by our leaders who have taken the hand of affairs of governance ahead of us. Sometimes we tend to say, before, nothing, now so much. Come on, man. You don't pluck ripe fruits unless somebody has planted the plants. I see this tendency from this government. Yesterday also, in the reply to budget, PMGSY, so many, as compared to other, who is preparing this budget speech and reply, I don't know. Every time comparing, as compared to 2016-18. Come on, man. Yes, do you forget one fact? What was the situation in Garo Hills that time? I remember huge number of work sanctioned under PMGSY, under the World Bank funded program. Rongjeng, 17 projects, one go. Songsak, 16 projects, one go. Samanda, 14 projects, one go. Tender, nobody participating in the tender because of GNLA, because of militancy, because of terrorists. You know? And ultimately, we had to beg the contractors, take the work. We will give you security, like we back those people who have participated and came to Meghalaya to build our Shillong, Nongstoy and Tura Road. At the most difficult time, when officers, forget about contractors, officers didn't have the courage to go to the site. That's the time when we have built roads. Some contractors abandoned. Those abandoned works still have not been started because revision of estimates is required. Nobody is going to take those works. But government is not aware of those revision. Till now, it's lying with finance. Number of PMGSY road, which were abandoned by the contractors because of problem of militancy. The department has sent revised estimates. Finance is sitting on it. The finance minister, the chief minister doesn't know it. Go and see on the site. But ready-made estimates, if you're calling tender in 2018, do you think in Garo Hills you can prepare the estimate in 6 months? The core road network in PMGSY, when was it prepared? So I want to say one thing, that this state, as an offshoot of the dream of our leaders of the past, who understood the strength of our people, strength of the inherent strength of our Khasi, Garo, Jaintia people, and all those people who co-inhabit with us in the state. Based on that, they had the whole motivation to ask for a statehood. They got it. And all these years, I saw leaders. When I was a student, I saw how they have struggled, how they have dedicated to build this state. All those leaders who have taken the responsibility of affairs of governance and laying the foundation for us to carry it forward. During my time as Chief Minister for 8 years, it is not because what I did, it is because of the foundation that was laid by the leaders who have laid the foundation before us. And based on that strength only, we are asking the government of the day, please draw the strength from this foundation which has been laid by leaders who have taken the responsibility of helm of affairs of governance before all our friends who are in the government now. The foundation that we have been able to lay. Access to market. We're talking about agriculture in the new normal. Access to market. Formatted. I-Team, 1917. A disruptive intervention that we launched. Not seen anywhere else. In the whole world. In the whole world. Forget about India. Why I'm saying it? Because the United Nations have documented it. Only 2 nations and one of them is our I-team, that concept of access to market. The farmers have to just call the number and tell them what they want to sell and where they need to go, how it should be sold, what is the market price, so that farmers are not a victim of market manipulation by the middlemen, which is usually the case in this country. It's done very well. But now what has happened? During this pandemic, instead of getting this access of program which has been already laid properly, how much is the chili being sold? I asked my wife, in Shillong, chili is being sold at 170 or 200 rupees. In Tura, chili was sold at 200 rupees. I talked to my people in Ampati. Hey, I have told all of you, it's a shame for Garos to buy chili. It's a shame for our tribal people to buy chili and buy vegetable, because our forefathers never bought chili. We have become so lazy. Why, sir? I said, because chili is being sold very high. No, sir, here we are selling at 40 rupees. Then some people from Dalu, some people from Chopot, they rang me up. I told, go to Ampati. I'll ask the DCs to give you that inter-district pass. Evening, somebody called me up, happy. Sir, we bought at the rate of 30 rupees per kilo, chili from Ampati. And what is the price in the outskirts of the produce of the farmers of Khasi Hills and Garo Hills, comparing to the price which is being, the price at which we are being compelled to buy? Please utilize this foundation which we have been laid properly, not misuse it. Somebody is misusing it, I'm afraid. Samajhdaro ke liye ishara hai kafi hai. We don't have to be explained how it is being done. Like honorable member from Rangsa Kona. When I was a kid, my mother told me, you have to learn everything. So I listened as an obedient son. So she said, son, you run this small grocery shop. He made me sit. I was more inclined to play, football. Football also, those days, no football, huh? We used to use that citrus, big citrus local fruit. And we also used to collect the, the gazette, this and that, tie it with those ropes, and then play. So, but I was told, you can play after such and such time, but till such and such time, you open this shop, I give you this. So I sold rice also. You know how much profit the wholesalers used to make? 10 rupees, 10 paisa, 15 paisa per kilo. I asked these wholesalers, Are, how come you people are making so much of profit? Then they said, no sir, we are not making so much of profit. There's a leakage on the way. It requires investigation. I'm afraid because we don't know what kind of situation we will face again. People should not take our people for granted. Whom have we robbed? Whom have we robbed? One gentleman from a village saying, sir, I don't have any more money because instead of getting 3 kg, I'm getting only 2 kg of rice. The limited money. No more scope to earn. Money going because of the spike, unprecedented spike in price. What is our job? When we know that poorest of the poor will not be able to bear the quantum of brunt of this pandemic. Unlike us, even if there is a lockdown for few more months, people like us will not go hungry. But today what has exposed is the exposure of the ground reality, that people who are at the bottom strata from the economic perspective, they have borne the brunt more than anybody else. You're seeing it on the street. You're seeing everywhere. We should demonstrate empathy. If we don't demonstrate empathy, I'm afraid we will not be able to forgive ourselves. People will talk about this. People will remember the suffering. We cannot expect those people who are walking in the streets of the country will forget those sufferings, the unprecedented human suffering, which is beyond the coping capacity of anybody. Therefore, my submission is, Mr. Speaker, sir, few technical things only in few minutes. Let us look at how we created new order, new normal. All those infrastructure, all those World Bank projects, we have to take advantage of. The work cannot be kept under, that standstill. And there should not be unnecessary panic which is not based on, as I have said, on scientific understanding of the challenge. Work has to start. I have seen some of the works in the national highway starting. Now people are asking, "Arey sir, these people have come from outside." Now we have to verify where have they come from. There's lots of confusion. So one thing is clear, okay, whoever is being employed in the work site, let the contractors, let the employer take responsibility of informing. Of course, they're informing, they're taking permission, but also to get all those people who are in the work site tested. So they know each other, okay, he's tested, everybody is free from virus. Like we are testing all those people who are coming back. We are testing everybody so we know, okay, nobody is infected. But the only thing is that because of the human error, we say that, okay, those people who are coming from outside, after a certain period of time, when we understand that, okay, the incubation period and the course of disease, until the time when the disease will be burnt, that timing should be used for second testing. So all those construction sites, let the employees, let those contractors ensure that the people who are being brought are furnished and let them be subjected to test. And every work site, let them have stringent protocol which can be prepared, rather improved in addition to what has been prepared. And of course, we'll have many more time to discuss. I hope the Honorable Speaker will hold some more consultations on the education front. I shared in the sidelines with the Honorable Minister from Education. He was sharing the concern that there'll be sudden, unprecedented pressure for admission in the higher classes of education. How are we going to deal with it? I was sharing that you may have to create some extra classrooms in those institutions which are providing higher education and which should be completed. I was referring to the house, my camp in Songsa, which I completed in 11 days. The people who constructed, who built this house with the prefab technology, they promised me handing over within 10 days, but they took 11 days, including septic tank, everything, toilet, everything. So I think we'll have to take extraordinary measures to deal with this problem in respect of education. Our children will not go outside for some time. Maybe some may go, but then it's going to be, probably we need to anticipate that one. And another thing is, on the issue of health, please take care of all those existing civil hospitals. And please also start that ratio 100-bedded hospital. It's very important. We don't know what type of pandemics are going to come. I only remember what is written in scripture. In Matthew 24:8, it's only but the beginning of the birth pain. So what is written is bound to happen. The birth pain, when a woman started having labor pain, until the baby is delivered, the birth pain will become more and more frequent, more and more frequent, more and more frequent, until the baby is delivered. I hope all my friends understand what I mean. Therefore, let us prepare. Medical, I know, yesterday Minister of Health, He was not provided the correct reply. It's not correct. I don't blame the minister. I don't blame the minister. But there seems to be lack of integration between the CMO and the health minister. If the minister in charge health doesn't know, but the CM knows, how is it available? Yes, it's a matter of concern. What I have must be with the minister in charge. Please review it. No, it embarrasses us. Everybody is watching us. So it's not a question of, trying to point a finger at somebody because of the, sometimes, it happens. But then if this information is not available with the minister in charge, but was available with the CM, there is reason for us to believe that there is a need for correcting to ensure integration between the CMO. How you do it, we know. What I say is there is a mechanism how to do it. We need to correct that. And in regard to horticulture, agriculture, marketing, self-sufficient, I have said why we were getting 30 rupees, 40 rupees chili because people have grown. I heard Honorable MLA from Siju Rongara, that whole area people are growing. East Garo Hills people, these Rongjeng people, Dobu people go and buy vegetable from Rewa. Last year, trucks and trucks of pumpkins were sent from Rewa. So this is what has happened over the years. These are all foundation laid. It doesn't happen overnight. It's very difficult to convince farmers to shift their crop. Somebody who is cultivating only rice, you tell the farmer to shift to another new crop, he will say, no, Baba, I will not. So, changing the crop for farmers required lots of convincing. I remember when we were trying to promote organic farming. Now we will say, we have done this, we have done that, in organic we could do. It took 3 years in East Khasias to convince the farmers to adopt organic mission. They were so resisting. It was very difficult. Because there were lots of factors who were playing. Anyway, that's the reality. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, we need to have all those few corrections. Testing of all those people who are coming with the confirmatory tests, RT-PCR, that is already being done. Thanks to Honorable Speaker for getting that consultation done, and thanks for the immediate response. I saw the copy of the revised protocol, but as I have said, even those who have been sent home before this protocol, let us have reverse tracking and also ensure that they are subjected to RT-PCR tests. And let us reach out to all our friends who are returning and ensure that they are all tested, and we all reassure our people, look, even if they are tested positive, if they have tested positive, we are going to take care of them. I think that undoing of that panic and the associated social stigma need to be continuously done. I urge upon the government to reach out to the communities. We have a robust system. We have also village disaster management committees which are constituted. We can replicate them and dovetail those advisory and the protocols which should be, the terms of reference for all of them. So with these few words, Mr. Speaker, sir, I drew the attention of the government through you and look forward to see that as a state we are able to come together collectively and make our leaders of the past feel that we have not failed them as we inherited this beautiful state and assume upon ourselves the responsibility. People have been very cooperative. We are thankful to all those people. We are thankful to all those frontline workers. One more thing I just remembered. Regarding the drivers and regarding the referral centers, I have spoken to the officers concerned, including the NEGRIMS. Now these normal cases, the elective surgeries. Elective surgeries cannot be kept for a long time. They will develop some complication. Therefore, this also need to be reviewed by the Department of Health and Family Welfare. The preparation to take care of all our patients who have critical ailments besides the COVID-19 must be attended to appropriately in a professional way. And referral system must be activated in a manner. How we actually use the driver of the ambulances is very crucial, because nobody is willing to drive the ambulance when they are asked to bring the patient to Shillong, to Negrims. But the moment they go back, they are subjected to quarantine. If we start quarantining all the drivers, I'm afraid we will end up having to drive all the ambulances ourselves. So this is something which is unscientific. Let us have some stringent protocol for the driver to be followed, so that after dropping the patient, when he goes back, he's not subjected to quarantine, but he's subjected to certain stringent protocols. All the drivers said, sir, we will not go, please don't mind, because so-and-so has been already quarantined. What is the protocol? They have to just come, drop the patient and go back. They are not allowed to hold also, but still quarantine. We are also overreacting. We are also doing things to make people become more panicky. So I think we need to have those few more consultation and have some more discussion at the department level, inter-department level. Kindly do so and carry forward the state. Meghalaya will remain COVID-free. One or two, whoever come, will be our strength. We will learn from them how they actually recovered, and their antibodies will be very important for us. Many of the treatment regimes that's being resorted to is by going back to those who have been infected and taking their serum and antibodies. So thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. And with my thanks for giving me this time and for allowing the House to have elaborate discussion on this very important motion. You have given enough time for the House. I profusely thank you.